Hi, I'm the Droodly Dude. In this video, I'm going to discuss reality. What is it, how we experience it, and how through a simple shift in concept, we can begin to understand and control our experience in a much more grounded and holistic way. The first thing we'll touch on is the basic definition of reality. Merriam-Webster defines reality as the true situation that exists, the real situation. This sort of definition is fairly typical of what you'd expect to find and is the standard definition you'd get from the average person. The definition is based on the standard conceptualization of things carried out by the consciousness of mind. However, as we'll soon see, the day-to-day experience of the individual is not that of reality, at least as it's being defined. One may typically say that I experience reality. I see this or that, so it is real. It is confirmed as real by its apparent consistency in our perception of it. And that perception can be made by others as well. So we can say, well, this is real, which is convenient and neat when considered in the abstract as a thought exercise. But the actual day-to-day experience of reality, for anyone as an individual or as a group, is far more involved and complex than the simple abstraction of the concept. The primary misconception of the individual, the person making a judgment, is the firmly held belief in their own objectivity, that we can experience and perceive something in a wholly objective way. That is to say that you can perceive and think about anything as it truly is, whereas the reality is that no one is capable of conceptualizing or perceiving or understanding objective reality or any piece of it. From a basic physical standpoint, one can easily show with basic observation that, for example, red is perceived by the eye due to the photons interacting with the surface of the object, and the way those photons then interact with the retinas, and how that information is interpreted by the brain. And through that process, you perceive that as being red. To a dog or an insect, the red on the object will be observed differently. This is a simple but relatively useless beyond making the point that at the fundamental level of perception, everything is subjective. All reality is subjective to the observer. What then can we make of the subjective experience in its totality? How can we apply this and actually use this in such a way that we may master reality? One must begin to think in terms of paradigm. In all things, at all times, we are experiencing a subjective reality. This reality is far more complex than just basic observations of color and shape, but includes our entire experience of emotion, sensory data, thought and reaction, imagination, expectation, and so on. So what is this reality, and what is it subjected to then? Our paradigm. As individuals, or even as groups on any scale, we experience reality through and within the paradigms we create for ourselves. Your own paradigm could be visualized like a bubble around you, through which any and all information must pass in order to be experienced. This information, like light passing through a lens, is warped and shaped by that lens, such that you will always see things in accordance with this effect, and therefore in accordance with your reality. By this continual process, your paradigm confirms to you the reality of this subjective experience and fuels belief in the objectivity of the illusion. Consider now that this paradigm is not just formed by the primary senses and their base functionality, hearing something, seeing something, but this paradigm is largely generated by the mind, the thoughts, emotions and mental habits of the consciousness. This paradigm becomes our reality in an active way as we continue to experience it and interact with it and through it. We follow these paradigms like a mental narrative, a story of thoughts we tell ourselves. I'm doing this, I went here and there, and it means this. Now I am this. They said this to me, and it means that. So I said this. Because I'm not that, I'm one of those, and those aren't like that. And on the story goes. The ego is the character, and the paradigm the story. And people never fail to believe the stories they tell themselves. Which brings us to two very important points, which, if properly understood, will fundamentally change the way you deal with this subjective experience and its apparent hold over you. The primary realization is that you are not the narrative or the character. You are the awareness of them. The second being that belief creates reality. You, the awareness, at the center of experience, the experiencer itself, decide what to believe in, and that belief becomes a part of your paradigm. This is very important, as it is the key to understanding the nature of many aspects of the spiritual. For example, why is it that a Christian exorcism can work, but so too can a pagan ritual? Why is it that the priest or shaman is seen as more powerful than a lay person? Because all aspects of that experience are subjective. The primary thing that they are subjected to is belief. So by the strength of their belief is the strength and effect decided, because what happens and how it is considered to exist is entirely contained within the observer's paradigm. To truly understand this and integrate it into your life, you will have to meditate and study. However, this grounded awareness is the key to unlocking reality, and many other typically misunderstood concepts such as manifestation, or for example, the ever-popular law of attraction. You can also see the effect of this directly in the body. For example, fear-based paradigms fill us with stress and anxiety, which literally affects your DNA and can make you less healthy, causing disease and illness. How then can one control reality? Well, firstly by seeing it for what it is, and by choosing more consciously what you choose to believe in and what you choose to allow to become a part of your paradigm. As an exercise, consider how your own paradigm, your own narrative of self, has taken shape. The personal narrative of who you are, why you are doing what it is that you're doing. How has that story taken shape? And listen to how you tell yourself that story. You don't need to treat this paradigm, this narrative of self, like an enemy to get rid of, because then you're just creating a new paradigm for yourself. Which, since if you're going to create a new paradigm for yourself, would be better done towards a goal of perhaps joy, health, love. Remember also that these things take time to change. Your mind is a physical thing, and the mental habits of paradigm are physically manifested in your body. New neurological pathways, they take time to grow. As another exercise, consider a group or collective paradigm. Just as we believe in ourselves as individuals and follow our own personal narratives, our experience is also that of a collective, with group-informed narratives that one might call cultural or social paradigms. For example, consider an individual's or even your own personal intellectual and emotional reality. When one has firstly believed in the narrative of self, and that self's story is a part of the group's narrative, whether it's a race, whether it's a culture or society or whatever, consider all the emotional and energetic baggage that burdens the individual, and all of that coming down from the placing of the self in that collective narrative. Massive amounts of beliefs, ideas, concepts are taken on in obligation because of the initial belief in the paradigm, the belief that you are the character of the story you've been telling, and yourself, the character, is this race, and we are this culture, and this is what we do, and this happened, so we do this and that, and etc., etc. So then, of course, given all that, I feel like this, it's justified and right, blah blah blah, the mind goes on. And of course, all of this is firmly, unwaveringly held as true and real by nothing more than individuals' awareness of it and subsequent belief in it. The conscious mind is generative, which is to say that it generates ideas, emotions, concepts, and you, as the experiencer, the fundamental awareness, choose to believe in them or not. The foundation for this is set in our genetics and biology, and as physical animals, we then begin constructing this narrative of self from early childhood. Thus begins to form our paradigm, and from then on it snowballs, rolling along, following the momentum it has, picking up whatever lays in its path. And the truth of this is scary and uncomfortable to us. Why? Because like anything that threatens our paradigm, we feel like it's dangerous. Dangerous to our narrative of self. We've spent our whole lives building it, and we don't like to face the glaring truth of its fiction. Which brings us to an important aspect of understanding reality, and that is fear. We have the self-assured notion that we, our minds, are seeking truth, that we want the truth, and that what we believe because it is true. As we've already seen, truth is subjective. So how can the mind evolve to seek something that it itself is creating? What then is the mind, the ego, the self-seeking? Safety, comfort, ease. The processes of mind look for the easiest answers and take them, provided that they fit within the narrative structure of the paradigm. The foundation of life itself is perhaps the primordial awareness at the center of mind. But consciousness, mind itself, is a product of the phenomenological expression of that life. We didn't evolve to know or perceive the truth. We evolved to survive. So now, as a final thought exercise, consider what we now know of paradigm and individual and collective narratives. How is it that those paradigms are affected now, in real time? What is the result of media? What is the process of custom and culture? How is fear involved in these things? How is love involved? Thanks for listening. I'll be going into more depth on some of these concepts I've touched on, as well as much more in other videos, so please subscribe if you want to. Thanks again. I've been the Julie Dude.